What is up, everybody? Welcome back to The Hurdle. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your boy, Cody Carpentier, with my other guy over here, Matty Kiwum, at Matty Kiwum on DOX.com. And today, there was a mock that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's got, I want to be respectful about this. He's got a little bit of an ego behind this mock. He says, I don't put out mocks just to put out mocks. Says, I don't put out things without proper intel, all this stuff. Maddie, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but Peter Schrager's mock was released this morning. We're going to do a little bit of a recap, a little bit of a review. This hat makes me look bald as shit, so I'm going to go ahead and take that thing off. But I'm ready to talk about this mock. And first and foremost, before we talk about this 2024 mock, let's see if the ego is justified, Mr. Peter Schrager. 2023 mock 1.0. All right. People remember conversed about, but there were this conversations about Tyree Wilson. He's saying he wavered between Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, and CJ Stroud at 2. Ended up being Will Anderson and Stroud. Stroud was the pick number 2. He did have Stroud and Anderson being top 2 and 3 together. But he had Tennessee trading up to take the quarterback. So he was also under the assumption that Tennessee was going to take a quarterback in round 1, as was everybody else surrounding Will Levis. He also put Will Levis 4th overall. He, too, was susceptible to the bait that we were all dealt with that didn't go until round number 2. Now, pick number 5 came in. Jalen Carter, Seattle Seahawks. They took Devin Witherspoon. Detroit Lions, he gave them Devin Witherspoon. Raiders, Tyree Wilson. What do you think about these first few picks as we look through here?
I mean, Peter Schrager's clearly tapped in. He's a well-known guy around the league, has sources all over. So when he speaks, it is worth listening. And so far, I think the mock is standing on it's standing on business, as they say. Anthony Richardson creeping up to the top 4 was really just kept secret, probably the best kept secret of the entire draft. But I mean, having Tyree, he was obviously clearly in on it. And the truth is, maybe he heard that Tennessee was trying to trade up. They just didn't have the assets. They didn't have the bullets to fire off something of that nature.
So as we look through ones that he got right, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just trying to hold him accountable.
He's got to be
ego comes in hot.
Absolutely.
He's the through the process. Mel Kiper doesn't come out with a hot ego. I don't come out. You don't come out. Daniel Jeremiah. These guys, they stay distant. They have reason behind every mock, and Schrager's the one that comes out heated. So I want to hold him accountable. So let's start back up with the first overall pick. Of course, BY was the layup. That's comparable to the Caleb Williams pick of this year.
Yeah.
Will Anderson at 2 and Stroud at 3. Stroud went 2, Anderson went 3. Houston ended up with both. So we'll count it for half a point for putting.
It's pretty good. I think it's good. Good intel.
Good intel. He had these guys 1, 2, 3. He had the correct players. Tennessee, on the other hand, was the only non-factor. Will Levis 4, Carter 5. Carter ended up going, of course, 9th to the Philadelphia Eagles. 5th was Devin Witherspoon, who we talked about, to the Detroit Lions with the next pick. The Detroit Lions moved down to 12 and ended up taking Jahmyr Gibbs. 7, Tyree Wilson. Tyree Wilson was a hammer. He wrote, I doubt the Raiders imagined Wilson would still be on the board at 7, but here he is. Vegas has needs at corner and offensive line, but Wilson might have the biggest upside of any player in the draft. At 8, the Falcons took Bijan. He gave them Christian Gonzalez. Uber athlete. He and Witherspoon are both expected to go top 10. Atlanta beefs it up. Paris Johnson, 9th overall. Peter Skoronski goes 10th. He actually went 11th to the Tennessee Titans. Broderick Jones, Anthony Richardson, 12 to the Seattle Seahawks. Very interesting intel and thought there. Of course, looking for a backup to Geno Smith. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 13.
This was very popular around this time last year.
It's cool to bring back these memories of these thoughts, right? So Jackson Smith and Jigba was projected to go 13th to the Packers. He ended up going 20th to the Seattle Seahawks. Zay Flowers right behind him, 14th to New England. He ended up going 22nd. So very close, back-to-back The only one missing was Quentin Johnston, who went between these two guys, and we could probably scroll down and find that out. Lucas Van Ness, he had 15. He went 13. Kincaid, 16. Remember, Kincaid fell into the 20s to
Right.
Buffalo. Very interesting. Darnell Wright, the tackle, currently of the Chicago Bears. He went to the Steelers at 17. Miles Murphy, Nolan Smith did fall. Jordan Addison, right in this conversation, he went 23rd. Houston ended up waiting until later in the draft to take Tank Dell. Bijan to the Vikings. Deontay Banks, Jameer Gibbs. So he had both those guys going round, both those running backs going round one. Will McDonald did go round one. So he's hitting on the players. I think that's the big thing we're noticing here. He's hitting on these players. Brian Brisset was a guy that was in question. Will McDonald was a guy in question. Miles Murphy, another guy that was in question. He's hitting on the players in round one. That's the big thing. Hendon Hooker, on the other hand, did not get drafted until round 3. He had been mocked to the Vikings there. Sam Laporta, hammer, didn't go there, but first round pick, hindsight. Jalen Hyatt, 31. And that was the last pick in round 1. So pretty good. I think my biggest takeaway from that in hindsight is saying he hit on a lot of these players in round number 1. Now, Maddie, I know you haven't talked a lot. I want to start getting your thoughts on TUS 2024 mock. So last year, the top 3, bing, bang, bong. This year, Peter Schrager, Caleb 1, Daniels 2, Drake 3.
I think Caleb and Daniels, that's going to become lockstep. We talked about it on the Draft Rankings podcast. Make sure you go tune into that about just, Adam Schefter is basically telling people of the Washington Commanders fan base, you're pretty safe to go get your Jane Daniels jerseys. You don't say that if you're as calculated as Adam Schefter is, if you're not 100% positive that Jane Daniels is going to the Commanders. They're hosting all the quarterbacks this week, but I think Jane Daniels is going to be the pick at 2.
And at pick 3, New England takes the quarterback from North Carolina, Drake May. He says, despite a lot of smoke in New England that could trade down, I believe the Patriots regime will comfortably pick between either Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Pat's brass took May out for steaks the night before his Foxborough visit earlier this month, and those guys loved the Charlotte native. They said they also loved their top 30 visit with Daniels. I think they're fine with whichever one falls to them. So that feels right. 1, 2, 3, pending what Washington does.
They're gun-ho at a quarterback. Patriots are getting a quarterback.
4, he has Monty Ossenfort trading down and the Giants moving up. So remember last year at this situation, he had Levis going up the board, but he also had number 3, Tennessee trading up for a quarterback at pick number 3. McCarthy here at 4 from the Giants.
So I think the Cardinals are banana land to trade back, given the receiving talent that'll be there. However, this is the only trade that I can entertain in my brain. I don't think Ossenfort trades past 6. The only reason why they stay here is so that you could still get a high-end wide receiver. I don't think he moves back unless it's to this exact spot where he can stay in the top 6.
Okay. And with that 6th pick, right after Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to the Chargers, some teams like Neighbors, he says, more than Harrison. Others may like Odunze, but I think Harrison ultimately the first wide receiver taken, and he fits perfect with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. At 6, like you mentioned, Ossenfort moves down, gets Rome Odunze, your wide receiver, and he gets scooped up by the Cardinals and Kyler Murray as their alpha wide receiver opposite Michael Wilson. No Neighbors in sight.
The Neighbors thing is perplexing to me, why they would go, but it really is pick your flavor. If we can predict the future, all 3 of these guys hit their 99th percentile outcome. You're looking at a Larry Fitz or an Antonio Brown or an AJ Green. I mean, they're all just absolute weaponry that they're looking for, Caleb. Roma Dunze fits, Neighbors fits, Harrison fits. The only thing I don't love of this is I just don't see Harbaugh going receiver at 5. but it seems like that drumbeat is getting louder and louder by the guys who are most plugged in. Move the Sticks, their latest episode, Bucky and Daniel Jeremiah, they're, again, pretty much solidifying one of these receivers going 5 to the Chargers. It makes sense. It's just the tea leaves aren't telling me this.
Last year, Peter Schrager had Tennessee moving up to 3, like I mentioned a minute ago, to get their quarterback. They did not. They ended up moving, not picking until 33 when they took Will Levis. They took Skoronski at pick 11. At pick 7, however, where Tennessee's picking this year, last year he tabbed Tyree Wilson to the Raiders and hammered it. Seems like he's getting the same intel everybody else is about Alt or Fashanu, the tackle to the Tennessee Titans. Pick 8, the Dallas Turner thing isn't maybe just all about the area, Georgia, Atlanta. Hey, whatever makes sense. Dallas Turner goes 8.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbors to 9. He has the Colts moving up to 9. Indianapolis sends Chicago a future second-round pick in order to move up 6 spots to pounce on Neighbors, the star receiver out of LSU in the AFC South that saw the Jaguars, the Texans, and Titans all aggressively attack free agency. Colts GM Chris Ballard shows he has some tricks up his sleeve as well. Now that would be a disgusting duo with Pittman and Neighbors in Indianapolis. And that, of course, rounds out top 10 with Bowers at pick 10, who is one. We've talked a lot about Odunze or Bowers being the one that goes to the Jets. What do you think about these 2 picks here? Neighbors 9 to the Colts with a trade up, and the Jets at pick 10.
So the Neighbors at 9 to the Colts. It's not that I don't think that'll happen. I just think that if that's the price tag, a future second to get into this pick, because remember they're coming up from 15. This is a big jump. You could bet your ass that there will be multiple teams sniffing around number 9, including the Chicago Bears, who own the pick if Neighbors is there. I like the Neighbors at 9. I think all receivers are off the board by this pick. I just don't know I just don't really see this being the compensation. And if it is, it could be anybody. So I'm not in love with the pick in terms of predicting the future, but I do think that one of the receivers at 9 seems like a pretty great bet.
All right, pick 11. Terrion Arnold goes to the Minnesota Vikings. They, of course, need corner. They need edge. They could use quarterback. Liatu Latu goes 12 to the Denver Broncos. Olu Fashanu has a little bit of a dip down here to 13 with the Raiders. No Bo Nix, no Michael Penix here so far. Talise Fuaga goes 14 to the Saints. J.C. Latham 15 to the Bears after that trade down. So they do get Caleb and J.C. Latham. Trey Fatanu 16. So we're just seeing a onslaught of offensive linemen here.
Yeah.
Olu, Fuaga, Latham, Fatanu, and then Quinyon Mitchell. The more I look at this landing spot, I kind of like it. I kind of like Quinyon to 17. I just don't see how he falls here. I don't know if that comes from all the conversations we've had, building him up, or what. But Quinyon 17 to the Jaguars is interesting. Byron Murphy to the Bengals at 18. Pretty chalky if he's there. 19, the Rams take Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. And 20, the Steelers go Brian Thomas. And he also adds in here, I'm still keeping an eye on Omar Khan to make a splash at wide receiver this offseason. Could that be a trade for Brendan Ayuk? If not, Thomas is a special talent who helped himself at the combine as much as any player at the position.
They clearly need help at wide receiver. I mean, they need some more weaponry for Russell Wilson. And I'm going to say Russell Wilson because I'm pretty confident that he gets the bulk of the starts early on. Talk about trying to revitalize that rainbow, huh? From Russell Wilson, just George Pickens and Brian Thomas. It's like, let's just play 3 safeties deep, and I think we can pretty much stop the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, Najee Harris averaged, 2.5 yards per carry, even with 6 guys in the box? Just kidding. 21st overall, Jared Verse does fall here to 21. We talked about that on other shows where there's potential for a guy like a Verse to fall this far, but no, for not reason of him, for more reason of the depth of other positions. Cooper DeJean gets in here at pick 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles, and my mighty, mighty Vikings pass quarterback early, but they take one at 23. Bo Nix.
I've kind of switched it around. I had Nix as my QB5. I now am at QB6. I think Penix has the better arm talent. He can spin it a lot better. Cody is he's utterly sick right now, seeing his worst nightmares come to reality here. Bo Nix going 23 to the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about it.
24, the Dallas Cowboys take Xavier Worthy. That's what I want to talk about. That's more exciting to me, is Xavier Worthy with CeeDee Lamb in an offense that can push that football down the field. I don't want to talk about Bo Nix to the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's interesting. I think it's terrible. But here we are, Terry Arnold and Bo Nix in round one for the Minnesota Vikings. 24, Xavier Worthy matched up, like I said, with CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. I think it's very fun. Mm-hmm. The Packers take Amarius Mims here at 25. At 26, Graham Barton, one of our favorite offensive linemen, go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Cardinals here with their next pick take Darius Robinson from Missouri. Maddie, let's talk about these last few picks here, though, because this is usually where the players that are maybe less talked about get bumped in here, and he was right last year, right? Mm-hmm. Multiple guys. Miles Murphy, now I got to bring it back up here. I had the list of them. Miles Murphy was
Will
one.
McDonald.
Will McDonald. He was getting a little helium as a draft. Yep. Brian Bresee from Clemson. But the one that he was out on, the ones that he was wrong on at the back end was Jalen Hyatt. I think Joey Porter fell in round 2 and Sam Laporta and Hendon Hooker. So it was the last 4 picks of that mock. He had Hooker, Laporta, Porter, and Hyatt, where he missed on. But he was right on Bresee, McDonald, Gibbs, Bijan, of course, and Miles Murphy. That's right. This year, Adonai Mitchell's in here. Zach Frazier from West Virginia is in here. Offensive lineman. I haven't seen Jackson Powers Johnson yet. Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to 30. Ladd McConkey, 31. And Jalen Polk, Washington, 32. So we got to find out who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is Kool-Aid McKinstry, Adonai Mitchell, I don't think is all that rare because I think within the top 35 picks, he's off the board. For me, the ones that I want to talk about was just Frazier and McConkey. Frazier being selected here over JPJ kind of tells me that he's hearing things that teams might be nervous about the injury history. Because wouldn't you think that JPJ is the perfect Dan Campbell Detroit Lion? It's also telling us that what Frank Ragnow has been saying about how unhealthy he's really been over the last couple of years is true, that the Lions could be looking to bring in interior lineman help who can eventually take over that center position once Frank Ragnow hangs him up. So I think that this is a pick that I absolutely will be taking note that maybe he's hearing Frazier over JPJ based on injuries. I mean, in terms of the where we have them routinely go in our mocks, it's anywhere from here to 36 to 37. I mean, it's not a crazy swap of the two. So that's something I'm definitely going to keep my ear out and keep my eyes open about, is if Zach Frazier is becoming the number one interior lineman off the board over JPJ. I'm not going to talk about Jalen Polk because I think that Peter Schrager and many others are falling into the same trap year in and year out, which is the Kansas City Chiefs go wide receiver. If you look at his mock from last year, had him taking Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt was a 3rd-round pick. I think that Kansas City getting a receiver here is, I think it's kind of a fool's gold. Kind of, I don't see it happening, especially now with the departure of L'Jarius Sneed. The wide receiver pool will be strong where they select even at the end of round 2. The cornerback pool falls off pretty dramatically for me. And when we start getting into the mid 30s and beyond. But McConkey, I want to bring up because McConkey's done everything in his power to come up people's draft boards. He's faster than expected. He can play inside, outside. He's a versatile receiver. I think that he has a higher ceiling than that of Troy Franklin. Maybe not as high as Keon Coleman because Keon Coleman has that unbelievable athletic ability and size that you can't teach. But Ladd McConkey going off the board here at 31 to the Niners. This would tell me that he's hearing a very loud drumbeat that Ayuk will be shipped before or at the draft. they would not keep Ayuk and use the 31st pick on McConkey when they need some improvements in their secondary and on their offensive line. So I want to hear your thoughts on Ladd McConkey going 31, because this, again, for me is one of those indicators that I'm going to pay attention. I think McConkey could get up into this range.
I think he's close. The circa number was 32.5. I think what it comes down to is I just did a show with Alex on Sirius XM. We did a 3-hour NFL draft special, and we talked about 6.5 wide receivers going in round one. McConkey's a guy, he's right on the fringe right there. I'm just not sure he quite cracks in. I'm not sure he quite cracks in. There's plenty of landing spots for him early round two. There's too many tackles. There's too many defensive linemen, and it all depends on these quarterbacks. If Penix and Nix both go, it's going to make it harder for some of these guys to squeeze in here, including both of these receivers here in Polk, who, if I'm wrong here, tell me, but he ain't going round one. I love Jalen Polk. I love Jalen Polk as much as almost anybody in the space. He ain't going round one. Ladd McConkey, I think he deserves to, but I think he goes in the early part of round two. So I think I XL both of those guys. The one I want to talk about before we get out of here, though, is Kool-Aid, man. Alabama to Baltimore pipeline remains strong. Even after Ozzy's gone, DeCosta steering the ship. McKinstry smooth and fluid. Didn't run the 40 in Indy. Didn't run the fastest 40 in Indy. His play speed wasn't a problem at Tuscaloosa. We talked about 4.47. We talked about in the Draft Rankings pod. When I look at last year's mock, Schrager had the Baltimore Ravens taking Darnell Wright in mock 1.0, tackle, and then Emmanuel Forbes in mock 2.0. Didn't do either. They win Zay Flowers, highest guy on the board. And Kool-Aid McKinstry feels right. He feels like cornerback is right. If he falls to 30, though, the big if is he has to fall to 30.
Yeah, that's a big if. And I would say this. We talk about it ad nauseum. The Ravens are the value gobblers of the NFL, where they have no problem doing it. And when you look at his previous mocks, Forbes was taken higher than expected when Washington selected him, even over Christian Gonzalez. So that could have thrown into multitudes. And then Zay Flowers being there, where the Ravens selecting in the 20s, probably was a bit of a value fall. I don't think many people had that in their in understanding that he was going to be available there. So again, Ravens just doing their thing and making picks with crazy value. And this pick here is very realistic because it sounds like the NFL is higher on Tyrion Arnold, which I just don't understand. I know why I know he's good, but he didn't prove to be all that more athletic than Kool-Aid McKinstry. And again, I think these NFL teams seem to make the mistake that why don't we just he can't be that good. They don't even throw at him, where it's like, no, they don't throw at him because he is that good. Kool-Aid's been the dude, 5-star prospect, was built for this. So the Ravens taking him at 30 just seems like, another come up for a very strong drafting team. I want to say this one last thing about Jalen Polk. I love the landing spot. I love the connection, but you're right. He ain't going in the first. I think at 64, Jalen Polk coming off the board of the Chiefs, that's something now I am going to keep in my back of my head when I knock out mock 5.0 next week.
I think that it could also be another thing that is mentioned there is it may not be that Schrager thinks he's actually going to go round one. It might just be him saying, get him on your radar, like he did last year with Jonathan Mingo. Mm-hmm. Last year, 1.0, he put Mingo into round one. And then in 2.0, he took Mingo out. So, and put Hyatt in. So it might just be one of those things. It's like, yeah, keep your eye on him. So it'll be interesting. We'll see where he goes in round 2 or / round 3. But that is the hurdle. It is Tuesday, April 16th. I'm Cody Carpentier. That's my main man, Matty Kiwoom. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys. We love you. Please click that like button. Please click subscribe. It's getting close. I'm having fun. I'm tired. I'm ready to see these landing spots come to fruition. That was the Peter Schrager mock 1.0 review recap. Shout out to Peter Schrager, NFL.com. Go check it out if you haven't already. Maddie, we'll be back tomorrow night.
Peace.